He's just an old farmer waiting to die. Once he's gone, that land is ours. You ever hear your own child talk about you that way, planning your end before you're gone? I didn't argue. Didn't shout. I just started planning too, quietly. And when the time came, they never saw it coming. Before we jump in, I want to know, where in the world are you right now and what time are you listening? Let me know in the comments. The first time I heard it, I thought it was part of a dream. My son's voice slipped through the thin wall, steady, deliberate. He's just an old farmer waiting to die. Once he's gone, that land is ours. There was no humor in him, no hesitation either. Just certainty. His wife's voice buzzed faintly through the phone, and he added, "Yeah. Once he's gone, we'll sell it. Enough to buy a real house in Des Moines." The words settled heavily. I didn't move. Just watched the ceiling fan turn its slow circles, the sound steady as breathing. My body stayed still because it didn't yet know what to do with what it heard. By dawn, frost had coated the yard. I rose early out of habit. Coffee on the stove, same as every day. The smell should have been comfort, but it wasn't. Michael came down, phone in one hand, half awake. "Morning, Dad." His tone was easy, polite. I nodded, poured coffee, and answered when he spoke about the tractor, the markets, the weather. We both knew the lines. When he drove off, I stepped onto the porch. The fields spread wide, quiet, and waiting. For decades, I'd seen them as a kind of covenant proof of a life built with calloused hands. She once said the soil held our family's breath. Now it just felt empty. Not ruined, just emptied of meaning. That evening I sat while the old house groaned with the wind. Silence had always been my way of keeping peace. When she passed, I spoke little. When Michael grew distant, I told myself that was what sons did. I'd mistaken quiet for strength. But too much quiet doesn't make a man patient. It makes him disappear. It wasn't about losing the land anymore. It was about being erased from my own story. I put on my coat and walked to the barn. The boards caught against my palm. The smell of old hay rose around me, familiar but dull. Everything I'd built felt like something already archived. I found the lantern, lit it. The glow swayed across the walls, unsteady but alive. My hands shook, then steadied. No plan. Only a pulse returning something I hadn't felt in years. My wife used to hum while she worked, said the land listens better than people. I thought about that, what it might say now. Maybe it would scold me for waiting. Maybe it would remind me I was still here. When the flame burned low, I blew it out and stepped into the cold. Somewhere beyond the ridge, a dog barked once, then fell quiet. The sound hung there a moment and was gone. I looked toward the house I'd built, plank by plank. The sun inside it was still my blood, though the word son felt strange in my mouth. There was no hate in me, just a hollow space where pride had once lived. But under that hollow, something firmer took shape. Not anger, not vengeance. Just the weight of a man who finally stops giving pieces of himself away. They moved me to the hospital in town. After the stroke, a small place where every sound carries. The nurses were kind, busy in that distant way people are when they don't know what to say. I wasn't in pain, just drained. My right hand shook when I tried to lift a cup. Michael came on the third day. He brought a paper bag of fruit, talked about insurance, and sat by the bed scrolling his phone. "Dad, you need to start thinking about what happens after. You know." I didn't answer. The oranges looked too perfect, store-bought, not from our trees. He went on about how the land was too much for me, how selling would make life easier. I let him talk, nodding now and then, so he'd think I agreed. When he left, he said he'd come back soon. I knew he wouldn't. That night, a crack in the ceiling caught my eye. It ran across the tile like a map. It made me think of the roof at home that leaked every spring, how Michael at 8 once held the ladder while I patched it. Back then, I thought he'd grow up steady. Funny how time rubs memories down until they hardly fit anymore. The next afternoon, I sat in the garden behind the hospital. A wooden bench faced a row of thinning trees. Then a young man approached, clipboard, ball cap, kind eyes. "Mr. Miller." "I'm Eli. My mom's cousin is Ruth. You might remember her." It took me a second, but I nodded. "Ruth's boy," he smiled. "I heard you've got one of the oldest farms in Jasper County. I work with a preservation program helps farmers keep their land from being sold off. Once it's registered, no developer can touch it. It stays farmland." His voice was calm, not pushy. He handed me a pamphlet. "No pressure. Just thought you should know there's another way." After he left, I stayed on the bench. The idea wouldn't leave me another way. Later, I overheard two orderlies talking in the hall. They said the Miller farm might sell soon, one hoping for a new shopping center. Hearing my name in their chatter stung more than I expected. The doctor came by the next morning, said I could go home in a few days if I kept resting. I nodded, but I'd already decided rest wasn't what I needed. When Michael showed up again, he wore a pressed shirt and polished boots. He said he'd met with some folks to handle the paperwork. "It'll take a load off your shoulders." "I'm fine," I told him. He sighed. "You don't have to make this hard." When he left, the pamphlet Eli gave me was gone. Maybe by accident, maybe not. That night I asked the nurse to turn off the TV in the hallway. She smiled and said she would, but the buzz kept on faintly. I closed my eyes and thought about Eli's words. How land was more than money. How preserving it meant protecting a part of yourself. Days, blurred signatures, polite smiles, final checks. On my last morning, the nurse helped me pack. "You've got good hands for an old man," she said. "My grandpas were like that. Farmer, too. When I stepped out, the cold met me clean. Michael's car was already pulling away. Maybe he'd come early and lost patience." I sat on the same bench again, watching cars drift in and out. Eli appeared, arms full of folders. "Heading home?" "Soon," I said. He offered me a ride. On the way, he talked about the program again, families keeping their land even through hard times. This time his words didn't sound like advice. They sounded like dignity. Another folder. "Just think about it," he said. "Sometimes keeping something alive means guarding it from those who don't understand." His truck disappeared down the road. The porch light glowed faintly. The house felt smaller. What used to comfort me now pressed in too close. In the barn, a few tools were gone, Michael's doing. On the workbench lay real estate flyers, numbers circled in blue. The company name told me enough. I folded the papers and set them aside. That afternoon he showed up. "You look better," he said, walking through like it already belonged to him. "I talked to some folks downtown. They're interested. We'd do well if we signed soon." It's still family, Dad. I'm helping you make the right call." I turned away. "You think selling this place is right? It's practical. You can't manage it anymore." He said it kindly, as if tone could soften betrayal. When he left, I pulled out the old deed folder. My wife's handwriting still marked one envelope keep safe. Inside the newest file was a signature that wasn't mine, neater, sharper. Someone had practiced. I stared until my eyes blurred, then took it into town. The same lawyer who'd helped me buy this land still had his name on the door. "Harold," he said, shaking my hand. "Been a while." "What brings you here?" I slid the paper across the desk. "Tell me if it's real." He read it. "Did you sign this?" "No, then it's fraud. Someone traced it. You can contest this easily." He signed and stamped a statement confirming it was fake. Driving home, I kept hearing Michael's words from the hospital. "You don't have to make this hard." Maybe he believed that. Maybe he thought I was the problem. The thought hurt worse than anger. Tires crunched on the gravel. Michael again. I stayed seated. Dad, I didn't mean to upset you, he said, stepping through the door like he still owned the key. I just want us to be smart about this. Did you sign my name on a contract? He blinked. What, you heard me? He gave a weak laugh. Dad, you've had a stroke. Maybe you forgot. Forgot. That word hit harder than anything. I didn't forget, I said, and I'm not confused. I took it to my lawyer. He froze, searching for a way out. I was just getting things started. It's no big deal. It's fraud. Something flickered across his face. Shame or irritation, maybe both. He grabbed his jacket. You never know when to let go, do you? Then he left. The echo of the door stayed. My hands shook not from weakness but restraint. I'd spent years mistaking quiet for peace. But peace built on lies doesn't hold. I tucked the certified letter under a stack of tax files and opened the window. Rain mixed with the smell of corn stubble. An owl called once, then silence returned. Eli's words replayed in my mind. Sometimes keeping something alive isn't about holding on. It's about protecting it from those who don't understand. The office smelled faintly of paint and polish money, dressed up as opportunity. I hadn't been to Des Moines in years, but I knew the type of room where people spoke in circles and called it business. Michael was already there in a gray suit hair, slicked back, pretending not to see me at first. Across the table, two men from the development firm spread papers between them, all confidence and cologne. One of them looked up. Mr. Miller, we were just reviewing the closing documents. I sat down without shaking hands. We're you now. Michael gave that salesman grin he'd learned somewhere between home and ambition. Dad, this is just the last step. I've got it handled. He slid a pen toward me. You said that once before, I replied. The room went quiet. One of the men cleared his throat. Your son's been acting on your behalf. If we could just... You mean the papers he forged with my name that stopped them? Michael stared at his cufflinks. I took a folder from my coat and set it on the table. That's a legal certification proving the signature's fake. I'd appreciate it if you stopped trying to buy what isn't for sale. No one spoke. The two company men gathered their files and left. Michael's mouth worked like he wanted to speak, but couldn't. Dad, you don't understand. I understand enough. The farm's not leaving my hands. You'll need to find your future elsewhere. He flushed. You embarrassed me. I met his eyes. That's what you took from this, he snapped. You can't hold on forever. You're too old to keep it going. Then it dies with me. But it won't be yours to bury. His hand hit the table hard. You never trusted me. I treated you like blood, I said. You treated me like a deal. The words hung heavy. He turned and left the door shutting with more finality than noise. The drive home was long. Fields passed in dull stripes of brown and gray. Each mile between us felt necessary. Back home, I hung my coat, filled the kettle, and poured instant coffee. The taste was rough but grounding. Sat on the porch. The fence line blurred into the horizon, same as it always had. This land had held everything, birthed at storms, now betrayal, and still it stood. Headlights bobbed along the road. Eli's truck pulled in. Evening, Mr. Miller, he called. Hope I'm not intruding. You've got good timing, I said. He smiled, cautious. Guess that's when paperwork finds people. We sat at the porch table. He explained the preservation contract again, simple final. Once signed, the land would stay farmland forever. Asked a few questions, but my mind was already set. The papers weren't about revenge. They were about peace drawn in ink. I signed. My hand stayed steady. Eli folded the documents carefully. You're doing the right thing. Maybe. But it's mine to do. He nodded, shook my hand, promised to file them in the morning. When his taillights disappeared over the hill, I stayed where I was. The porch light flickered, then steadied. I thought of Michael. Whether he'd call or curse me didn't matter much. Distance can be a mercy. The first snow melted quickly, leaving the field soft and streaked with mud. I spent mornings walking the fence line more out of habit than need. Eli stopped by, sometimes quiet, steady in the way of someone who meant what he said. Eli came one morning with a folder. "It's official now," he said, tapping it lightly on the table. The county seal caught the light, pressed deep into the paper. "So that's that," I said. He nodded. "No one can touch it. It's protected under your name." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Peace in a family never lasts. 2 weeks later, Michael's truck rolled up the drive, dust trailing behind. He didn't knock. "You've been busy?" he muttered, eyes on the papers spread across the table. "Coffee." He ignored it. "You went behind my back. I protected what's mine." He paced, jaw tight. "You signed that land away to strangers. You made sure I'd never see a dime. I made sure it stays a farm, not a sale. That's the same as cutting me out," he snapped. "You'd rather give it to dirt than to your own son." The words cut mostly because they were partly true. He'd lost his claim the moment he forged my name. "I gave you a chance to earn it," I said. "You chose otherwise." His eyes hardened. "You'll regret this, old man." The screen door slammed hard enough to shake the hinges. The kitchen clock ticked in the silence he left behind, counting out an ending I hadn't asked for. That evening, Eli stopped by again, unaware of the fight. He brought a bag of seed and a notebook. "Thought you might want to try crop rotation next season." I must have looked tired because he paused. "Something wrong? Nothing new. Just old things wearing new faces." He nodded, letting it rest. We talked instead about soil grants and maybe turning part of the land into a co-op. "People want real food again," he said. "Not factory kind." The idea eased something in me. When he left, he added, "Starting over doesn't always mean starting fresh. Sometimes it just means knowing what still matters." His words stayed long after his truck was gone. Days fell into quiet rhythm. I fixed the tractor, patched the chicken coop, mended what didn't need mending, each nail a way to keep the place breathing. Then the letter came. A law firm in Des Moines. Michael's, I could tell before opening it. Notice of intent to dispute property arrangement. I read it twice, folded it clean and set it beside my coffee. Later went to the barn. I thought of the boy who once held a wrench beside me, who stayed up late during harvest just to prove he could. Where had he gone? Wind brushed the tin roof. For a moment I heard my wife's hum in it, soft and steady, the sound that once filled our days. That was the reason I'd done this, not to win, but to keep alive what she and I had built with bare hands. I called Eli and told him. He was quiet for a beat. "Want me to find a lawyer who knows preservation law? Do it," I said. "Better strangers in suits than family without conscience." He hesitated. "You still love him, don't you?" "Love's not the problem," I said. "Trust is." The lawyer Eli found was younger than I expected. Mid-30s, sharp eyes, calm tone. Her name was Jenna Ruiz. She drove up in a muddy SUV that didn't match her suit, and I liked her for that. At my kitchen table, she leafed through the papers with clean precision. "Your son doesn't have a case," she said. "He can challenge it, but the contract's solid. You'll get letters, maybe a hearing notice. It's meant to wear you down." "I've been worn down before," I said. "Didn't break me then." Her smile was small, but it reached her eyes. I can tell. After she left, the house slipped back into its usual rhythm. I'd thought the fight was over, but Michael wasn't built to let things rest. 2 days later, another envelope arrived. No return address. Just a short note: "You've ruined our family. Hope you're proud. No signature needed." I knew the cadence of his resentment. I folded it and tucked it with the rest of the documents. Eli stopped by that afternoon with seed catalogs. You planting this year thinking about it? Smaller section, maybe? He nodded. Smaller keeps the joy in it. We sat a while without much talk. When he finally spoke, his tone was gentle. Family fights drag on longer than they should. Some last until one of us dies, I said. Then the silence wins. He looked down at the catalog. Then I hope silence treats you kindly. Weeks passed in that uneasy quiet when you're waiting for bad news. Every truck sounded like a process server, every unknown number like trouble. But nothing came. The waiting hurt worse than the conflict. I filled the days with chores, fixed the barn door, patched the roof, oiled the tractor. Work steadied me. Nights didn't. The house felt too big once darkness fell. Sometimes I caught myself talking to my wife, to the land, maybe both. One evening while mending fence by the road, headlights slowed nearby. Michael stepped out. You really think this will last, he called? You think Eli's people care about you? They'll use your name, then drop you. I kept hammering. At least they're honest about what they want. You've lost it, he said. You'd rather trust strangers than your own son. I turned. You're not a stranger. That's what makes this worse. He stared like I'd spoken a language he didn't know, then got back in his car and drove off, gravel spinning. When the sound faded, I stood there with the hammer hanging loose in my hand. The post leaned slightly. I left it that way. A few nights later, a banging woke me. I grabbed a flashlight and crossed the yard barefoot. The latch hung broken again. Footprints marked the dust inside, leading to the back wall, heavy recent. I didn't need to guess who they belonged to. Next morning, I replaced the lock and added a chain. When Eli came by, he noticed. Something happened. Wind took the latch, I said. He studied me, then let it go. Keep a light out here. Folks wander this road. Maybe. We spent the afternoon hauling tools, clearing the silo yard. He talked about getting volunteers for the co-op come spring. I nodded, but my thoughts stayed on the barn. As he packed up, he asked, You okay out here? I've been alone most of my life, I said. He hesitated. Still let someone know if you need anything. After he left, I stood by the fence until the light bled out of the sky. The cold bit through my jacket, sharper than before. The knock came before dawn. Heavy hurried. I pulled on my coat and opened the door. Jenna stood there, cheeks flushed from the cold, a folder clutched tight. Morning, she said, breath short. Sorry to drop in unannounced. We've got a problem. Those words had started to sound familiar. She stepped in, shaking off the chill. Your son filed an injunction. He's trying to freeze your assets while the dispute's under review. I didn't say anything. She laid the documents on the table, flipping to a page marked with a yellow tab. They're claiming you're mentally unfit after the stroke. The words landed like a stone. Mentally unfit, I repeated, tasting the phrase. It won't hold, she said quickly. Your doctor's records are clean, but the filing itself gives them temporary leverage. They can stop your bank from releasing funds, delay your transactions, drag you into hearings. It's intimidation. The chair groaned beneath me. He's really doing this. I'm afraid so. She hesitated. You'll need to show up for a medical evaluation. It's routine, but the optics matter. Optics, I muttered. Always about appearances. She nodded, not arguing. I'll handle the paperwork. Just keep yourself steady. Don't reach out to him. Let me do the talking for now. After she left, I poured myself a cup of coffee that had gone cold. The cup trembled a little in my hand. I wasn't sure if it was anger or age. Maybe both. The rest of the morning passed in small, nervous chores. I fed the chickens, tightened a gate hinge, swept the porch that didn't need sweeping. Each motion helped keep my mind from spinning. Eli's truck rolled up. He must have heard the news already. You holding up? He asked. I've been better, I said. He looked toward the fields where patches of snow still clung to the soil. I don't understand him, he said quietly. I do, I answered. That's the problem. We didn't talk much after that. He helped me split wood for a while, then left me with a firm pat on the shoulder. When he drove off, the silence came roaring back. That evening the phone rang. Unknown number. Dad Michael's voice. Dry, sharp, unfamiliar. I see you've been busy, he said. I could say the same. This isn't about the land anymore, he said. It's about you refusing to accept reality. You're sick. You don't even see it. I took a slow breath. You think I'm crazy because I won't sell what I built. I think you're lost, he replied. You don't know what's good for the family anymore. The family, I said the word, tasting bitter. You mean yourself. He went quiet for a second. You can't live forever, Dad. You're wasting what could have made things easier for everyone. Easier for you, I said. Not everyone. He sighed. I didn't want it to come to this. Then you shouldn't have brought it here. He hung up. I set the phone down gently and stared at the wall for a long time. Somewhere across the field, a coyote called its cry, stretching through the dark. Thought about what Jenna had said. Don't reach out, let me handle it. But silence had never felt this loud. The next morning I drove to town for the evaluation. The doctor was polite, younger than my son. He asked questions what day it was, who the president was, what I ate for breakfast. I answered every one of them without hesitation. When he asked if I knew why I was there, I said, because someone wants my mind declared dead before my body catches up. He stopped writing for a moment, then said softly, You seem perfectly lucid to me. Tell that to the judge, I replied. After it was over, I sat in the parking lot for a while. Thought about calling Michael, then remembered Jenna's warning. Back at the house, I found a small box on the porch. No note. A set of keys, the spares to my truck that had gone missing weeks ago. I stood there a long time, the metal cold in my palm. Jenna called to say the doctor's report was favorable, but the hearing would still go forward. He's doubling down, she said. His lawyer's aggressive. I figured, you sure you want to keep fighting this? You could offer mediation, settle it quietly. I've lived quietly my whole life, I said. Didn't do me much good. She didn't argue, just said she'd see me at the courthouse next week. After the call, I walked to the barn again. The chain held firm, though I checked it twice. The animals shifted restlessly, picking up on what I already felt the air stretched thin, ready to snap. Leaning against the door, I stared toward the empty road. For years, I'd told myself endurance was strength. Lately, it sounded more like fear, wearing a proud face. The hearing fell on a Tuesday. Jenna picked me up before dawn, her thermos steaming in the cup holder, papers stacked neat in the back. The courthouse smelled of old wood and burnt coffee. Michael was already there beside his lawyer, a man polished to the point of smug. My son avoided my eyes at first. The judge, thin and deliberate, spoke in that even tone, meant to sound fair. Jenna answered clear and steady. Then Michael's lawyer stood reading phrases wrapped in legal polish, declining capacity, post-stroke confusion, erratic decision-making. Each word landed like a small betrayal. When the judge asked if I wanted to respond, I stood. I've farmed the same land for over 40 years. Built the fences, dug the wells, fixed what broke. My wife and I worked until our hands cracked because we believed something honest should outlast us. I looked at Michael. My mind's still mine. The only confusion I've got is how a son decides his father no longer deserves the soil that raised him. Silence filled the room. The clock ticked behind the bench. Michael dropped his gaze first. The judge cleared his throat. That'll do for now. Jenna leaned over. You did fine. The rest of the hearing blurred legal chatter pretending to be justice. When it ended, the judge said he'd decide in 2 weeks. Michael caught me by the steps. You didn't have to humiliate me. I told the truth. You think people see it that way, they don't have to. I do. He shook his head. You're impossible. Better impossible than disposable. He froze, jaw tight. You'll make sure I never forget this. I don't have to. You already won't. He walked off. I watched him vanish into the crowd until Jenna touched my arm. Let's get you home. The drive felt long. My head throbbed not from anger but from weight, something deep settling in my bones. Jenna spoke about next steps, but her words drifted. When we reached the farm, I thanked her and stepped inside. The house greeted me with its familiar stillness. I poured cold coffee into a cup and drank it anyway. At dusk, I stepped onto the porch. The field stretched wide, patient and unchanged by human noise. I traced the railing's grain rough beneath my thumb. A car slowed at the end of the drive. Headlights dimmed, then kept going. Relief came small but sharp. Later, Eli stopped by, boots caked in mud, concern tucked behind a grin. Heard about court? I had a day, I said. You think it's over? Nothing's ever over. It just changes shape. He nodded. You've got people on your side. Don't forget that. Funny how they're never the ones you expect. He smiled faintly, pulled an envelope from his jacket. Community fund. Enough to cover some repairs. I took it. You didn't have to. We wanted to. That land's part of all of us now. The words hit somewhere between gratitude and guilt. I thanked him, and when he left, the house felt less empty. The next days I buried myself in work, patching the barn roof, clearing brush, giving the ache something to do. One afternoon, I found a note under a rock by the gate. You'll regret making me your enemy. I read it twice, then tore it up, letting the pieces scatter over the dirt. That evening, Jenna called. Don't respond. He's baiting you. I won't, I said, though. My chest tightened. After the call, I went behind the silo where the last light brushed the fields. My shadow stretched long and uneven. I thought of Michael, not the man in court, but the boy who used to run through these rows, laughing. Maybe he'd traded that boy for ambition, one piece at a time. When night fell, I sat listening for the whistle. A week passed without word from the court. Each morning I half expected an envelope. Each evening I told myself it was better that it hadn't come. Waiting became its own ache. One afternoon, while fixing a leak in the pump, Eli's truck pulled in. He hopped out with a grocery bag. Figured you could use a real meal. I almost smiled. You trying to bribe me into working harder? Something like that? He unpacked bread soup and a small jar of honey, moving through the kitchen like someone raised to believe small kindness still counts. While the soup warmed, Eli talked about the co-op. A few families were interested. Local papers had started asking questions, and a grant might be coming. I listened, nodding where I should, though part of me drifted elsewhere. You're thinking about him again, he said quietly. Can't help it. He's my blood. Blood's just proximity, he murmured. Not loyalty. The soup was simple and good, tasted like something from before money and lawyers. When he left, the stillness that followed felt heavier than before. Later, I sat at the table watching the phone that hadn't rung all day. I picked it up, set it down again. There was nothing left to say that wouldn't bleed. Near midnight, gravel crunched outside. A car door, footsteps, then stillness. My pulse kicked hard. No knock, just a scrape near the barn. I stepped out, flashlight in hand, and saw a figure by the fence. Who's there? The shadow froze. My light caught familiar shoulders. Michael. He turned face older than I remembered. I just came to talk. Strange hour for that. couldn't sleep. I lowered the light. You picked a bad way to show it last time. He glanced at the barn. Didn't come to fight. Just needed to see it again. Everything looks smaller now. You've been gone a long time. He nodded. I thought money would fix that. Turns out it just goes quiet when you're alone. Is that an apology or confession? Maybe both. We stood there. Then he said, Judge ruled in your favor. I got the notice. I hadn't heard. I lost Dad. You win. I didn't win. I kept what was mine. You'll never forgive me, will you? That's not what I'm trying to do anymore. What then? Live without hating you. He stared at the dirt. I don't know what to do next. Work, I said. Earn a future. He nodded, once eyes bright. Maybe I'll try. Do what you need to. As he turned away, he added, Lock the barn better. One hinge is loose. Then he was gone. I watched the road long after his headlights vanished, unsure if I felt relief or grief. Next morning, Jenna called. It's over, she said. The injunction's dissolved. No appeal. Good, I answered. You sound tired. I am. Then rest. I'll try. After the call, I walked the fields. Frost softened underfoot the soil, exhaling after weeks of tension. A crow landed nearby, cocking its head before flying off. I envied its simple decision to leave. Morning came quiet. I brewed coffee, watched steam curl and vanish. The phone rang. Jenna's tone was clipped. Michael's at it again, she said. He's gone to the press, claims Eli coerced you into signing the preservation deal. I rubbed my forehead. He's really scraping low now. It's not just noise, she said. They're calling it elder exploitation. Reporters might show up. Stay calm, don't answer, let me handle it. When the line went dead, I sat for a while wondering what a man looks like after he's run out of decency. The thought hurt more than the lie. By noon, a white SUV crunched up the road. A woman stepped out with a notepad. Mr. Miller. I'm with the Register. Got a minute, you can have one, I said. She asked about the agreement Eli and whether I'd been pressured. I told her no tricks, no coercion. I signed because I wanted the land to stay a farm. When she asked about my son, I said, ambition isn't a crime, but ambition without respect is a field without roots. She wrote that down. I knew it'd print. After she left, I called Eli. I saw the story, he said. We'll issue a statement. Don't let it hurt your work, I told him. It won't, though he didn't sound sure. That evening I walked the fence line. The soil was damp, smelling of pine and memory. Every step reminded me how long I'd tried to teach Michael what this place meant, not wealth, but worth. When I returned, his car was already there. He leaned on the hood, eyes red, arms crossed. Reporters got here first, he said. I told them the truth. Your version of it. You made me look like a monster. I didn't have to. You'd side with strangers over your own blood. Strangers didn't forge my name. He stepped closer, fists tight. This farm won't save you, it's just dirt. That dirt fed you, I said. You'll remember when you're hungry again. Something shifted in his face, anger blunted by regret. He kicked the tire and turned away. Michael, I said. He paused. Don't come back till you know why. He left without a word, gravel snapping under his tires. One pebble hit my boot and fell harmless. I poured a glass of whiskey. The warmth steadied me. The next day's blurred calls, neighbors pretending concern, but fishing for gossip. Eli fielded reporters kept my name out of headlines, but rumors spread faster than truth. Then one morning, graffiti on the fence, greedy old man. I painted over it, each stroke slow and steady like reclaiming a pulse. That night, Eli came by. You should stay in town for a bit, he said. It's getting tense. I've lived through worse. This is noise. Noise turns dangerous. If I leave, he wins, I said, tapping my chest. This is home. He stayed for dinner. We talked about crops, not conflict. Simple, solid things. After he left, the quiet returned, heavy but bearable. Michael's words echoed, "It's just dirt." I thought of my father saying the opposite. "Take care of the land and it'll take care of you." Between those two sentences sat my whole life. But whatever was coming, I was done hiding. It began 2 days later, just before dawn, a pounding at the door, quick and hard. Eli stood there, breath clouding in the cold. "Harold, you'd better come see this." He led me down the road. The fence along the main line was sliced clean through tire tracks, gouged deep into the mud. The field I'd just reseeded lay torn apart, like someone had meant to wound it. Eli crouched, tracing a rut. "They knew where to hit you. It was him," I said. He didn't argue. "Call the sheriff. Do it." The deputy came half an hour later, a young man with practiced detachment. He took pictures, wrote notes, and said, "Hard to prove who did it. No witnesses, no cameras. I know who did." He nodded, unconcerned. "We'll keep an eye out." When they left, Eli asked, "Want me to stay?" "No. You've got things to do. So do you." "Not anymore." I walked back to the barn. The cold bit through. Rage rose sharp and clean, flooding through me before I could swallow it down. Every part of me wanted to drive to Michael's house, make him see what he'd done, but that'd only turn me into him. So I worked. Fixed the fence, one post at a time. By dusk, my hands ached, and Eli was back with sandwiches and coffee. We ate standing up, watching the sky sink red. "You think it was him," he said. "I know it. What'll you do? I already did. I didn't stop him before." "That was my mistake." He nodded, let it rest. Later, I walked the property alone. Flashlight sweeping through fog found a torn scrap of paper in the mud, my name smeared across it. It wasn't proof, but it was enough. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I called Jenna. "He vandalized the property. I'm pressing charges. Do you have evidence enough?" She sighed. "This will get ugly. I've lived with ugly all my life." Sunlight broke through when I hung up, slicing across the wrecked field. Whatever peace I'd imagined here was gone. What remained was honest ruin. The sheriff came again with another deputy. More photos, more questions. I gave them Michael's name. They traded looks. "We'll talk to him," one said. Can't promise much. When they left, the house felt smaller. I brewed coffee I didn't want and let it go cold. Eli showed up that afternoon to help patch the irrigation. We worked in silence. He said spring could fix what winter broke. I tried to believe him, but some things stay broken. Near dusk, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You called the cops on me." Michael's voice, rough. "You left me no choice. You think they care about you, I don't need them to. I just need them to see." A pause. "You're not the man I remember. I'm not sure you ever knew me." I hung up. The sheriff never called back. His report would sit somewhere in a drawer, waiting for someone who still believed in paperwork. I hadn't expected justice anyway. 2 mornings later, I brewed coffee, watched it drip, and thought about what was gone and what remained. The field was scarred, but it would grow again. The fences could be fixed. The soil hadn't turned its back on me, even if people had. Around noon, Eli showed up, coat dripping. "You're still standing," he said. "I haven't found a reason not to." He handed me a folder wrapped in plastic. "You'll want to see this." We sat at the table while he unwrapped it, final approval for the co-op funding my name listed as founding partner. "You're official," he said. "They'll use your farm as the model site." For a moment, I just breathed. After all the noise here was something quiet that stayed. Eli poured coffee. "Most folks would have quit by now. Most folks didn't have this land." He glanced around the kitchen at the fading photos. "You ever think about leaving every day?" I said. "Then I remember there's nowhere else that knows me like this place." He smiled faintly. "That's loyalty." "No," I said. That's roots. When he left, I finished the last section of fence. The sleeves of my shirt clung damp against my arms. I hadn't realized how long it had been since work felt like peace. The posts weren't straight, but they stood. That was enough. By evening, the light softened. I hung my coat, found a letter on the table, no envelope, just folded paper. Michael's handwriting. It was short. I heard about the co-op. I won't bother you again. Maybe I just wanted to prove I could take something from you since I never knew how to ask. I'm sorry it went this far. No return address. Read it twice. What loosened in me wasn't forgiveness, just the release that comes when fighting ends. I didn't reply. Some things end better unanswered. Before bed, I checked the barn. The animals were calm breath warming the space. My father used to say, caring for what can't speak teaches you how to listen. I finally understood. Spring came late that year. The thaw lingered into April, the ground soft, long after the snow was gone. Most mornings fog blurred the fence line until noon. Waiting had become a rhythm of its own. Eli arrived with 2 men from the co-op board, young, eager notebooks in hand. We walked the fields while they talked, rotations, soil, renewal, and outreach. I nodded where it mattered, but what stayed with me wasn't their talk. It was that someone else finally saw the land as something to tend, not trade. At the far edge of the property, one of them asked, Mr. Miller ever think about retiring? I've been retiring 1 fence post at a time for 10 years, I said. By the end, I'll be too tired to notice. They laughed politely and moved on. Eli stayed a step behind his look, saying he understood. After they left, we hauled a broken gate into the barn. You did good, he said. I don't need good. I just need them to treat the soil right. That's the same thing, Harold. Days stretched longer. I planted clover in the upper field, each seed, a small defiance against what had tried to strip this place bare. A letter came a week later. Michael, again, I'm leaving the state. Got a job down south. I won't bother you again. No apology, no anger, just exhaustion. I folded it, slid it into the drawer, and let it stay there. That evening, I joined Eli and the volunteers at Town Hall to sign the final co-op papers. Under the harsh lights, their talk of futures felt distant, but when I pressed the pen down, I knew I'd kept something alive. Afterward, there was pie and coffee talk of legacy. Someone clapped my shoulder. You've built something that'll outlast you. I said nothing. I hadn't built it. I'd simply refused to let it die. Back home, the porch light flickered across the yard. The barn door groaned, but I didn't mind. It sounded like breath. I poured a glass of water, opened an old box my wife had kept letters, photos, seed receipts. At the bottom was a note in her hand. Don't forget to rest once in a while. The field can wait. You can't. I pinned it above the sink the next morning. The light was clear, the day quiet. I ate standing up, same as always. Midday, Eli stopped by. You heading to the community meeting if there's coffee. They want you to speak. Tell them why you did it. I poured him a cup, because I was tired of watching things die that didn't have to. He nodded. That'll do. We spent the afternoon repairing a section of irrigation. You ever wonder what it'd be like if things had gone different with him? He asked. I used to, I said. But wondering's just another way of holding on. We finished in quiet. Morning came with mist low over the fields, the air smelling faintly of wet hay. I woke before sunrise, moving slow, not from pain, but from that quiet wait that follows a long storm. Fed the hens, fixed a gate latch, then changed into a clean shirt. The collar felt stiff, the fabric new against my skin. I almost wondered if I looked like a man trying too hard to seem respectable, then let the thought go. The meeting was in the town hall, same crooked benches, same flag, same smell of coffee and varnish. My wife used to sell pies here at harvest fairs. Nothing much had changed. People nodded as I walked in, some polite, some out of old guilt. Small towns remember everything even when they pretend not to. Eli waved me to the front row. "You good?" he whispered. "As good as I'll ever be." "They'll listen," he murmured. When my name was called, I stood knees cracking loud enough for a chuckle or two. That helped. I wasn't there to perform, only to speak plain. "Most of you know me," I began. "You've seen me at the feed store or post office. You've probably heard the story, though by now there are too many versions to tell which is mine." I paused. I almost lost my farm, not to weather or luck, but to the wrong kind of quiet. I let things slide until they didn't. When I finally spoke, it was too late to save the family part of it. But I saved the land. That's what I could still do right. The room stayed still. Even the clock held its breath. I don't know what this co-op will look like in 10 years. Maybe it'll grow, maybe it won't. But if it helps people care about what feeds them, then every bruise it took was worth it. I ended there, nodded once, and stepped down. Applause came slow, then steady. Some stood. I didn't look long. Kindness can sting when you're not used to it. By the door, Eli caught up. "You did it. I just talked. That's what doing it looks like." We walked out together. The mist had lifted sunlight, breaking through in thin ribbons. People lingered outside talking soil tests, grant forms, volunteer shifts. The sound was messy alive. On the way home, I rolled the window down. At the barn, Eli parked. "You'll have more help this season," he said. "Couple of college kids. I told them you'd scare them straight." I laughed, rough but real. "Don't scare easy anymore." That's not what I heard. He grinned, then softened. "You've done good, Harold." When he left, the afternoon stretched quiet. Rain was coming. Wiped my hands, climbed the porch steps, and paused, looking once more at the land worn familiar alive. The kettle waited on the stove. I filled it, leaned on the counter as the first drops touched the roof, slow and deliberate. The world smelled rinsed clean. I woke late, body sore, but calm. The kind of ache that reminds you you're still working stock, not relic. Coffee, same as always, 2 scoops, slow pour, nothing fancy. Eli showed up before noon, knocking once before stepping in. "You planning to sleep through spring?" He set a brown bag on the table. "I was waiting for the rain to finish," I said. "Seems it listened." He laughed, pulled out 2 sandwiches. "You should have been at the co-op this morning. They started plowing the north field. Those college boys worked like they'd never seen dirt before. Let them get blisters," I said. "They'll learn to respect the land." We ate in easy quiet, the kind that settles between people who've already said what matters. After lunch, Eli helped me carry tools to the shed. He talked about the next workshop, composting, crop rotation, all that new science. What I liked most was knowing someone else was planning ahead now. The land wouldn't die with me. When he left, I lingered by the fence. The grass had deepened overnight, greener than it had any right to be. My hand brushed the top rail. For years I'd built everything around holding on family pride ghosts I couldn't name. Now it felt more like letting go without losing the heart of it. The afternoon drifted. I cleared shelves in the barn, tossed what had rusted past use. Dust rose in thin clouds, caught the light, and settled again. Every nail and dent held a story, but I let them stay quiet. Later I walked the fields. The ground gave softly underfoot, and tiny clover shoots pushed through the soil. I crouched, touched one, and smiled. Life didn't wait for permission. It just kept going. By dusk, the sky turned gold. I built a small fire behind the barn and sat with a cup of coffee gone cold. The wood crackled. Somewhere a tractor droned in the distance. A child's laughter carried from the next farm, light and sudden. For once I didn't feel like the last one awake. When the fire sank to embers, I went in washed. The cup hung my jacket. Above the sink, my wife's old note still hung, "Don't forget to rest once in a while. The field can wait." You can't. I'd ignored that for years, always choosing work over quiet. Now I understood rest wasn't quitting. It was trust. Knowing when something didn't need your hand anymore. A knock came soft, unsure. I opened the door to a young co-op volunteer, boots muddy. "Mr. Miller," he said, handing me a bundle of seedlings wrapped in damp paper. "Eli said you'd know where to plant these. Tell him he's right." The boy grinned. "We're hosting a planting day Saturday. You should come. Show us how it's done. Maybe I will if I can keep up." He waved goodbye. I set the seedlings on the counter. Small, fragile things, roots bound tight, but alive. I filled a basin and let them soak, watching bubbles rise and vanish. I carried the seedlings to the porch so they'd catch morning light. My knees ached as I straightened, but it was an honest ache. Far west, thunder rumbled, a reminder, not a warning. The scent of soil rose thick and clean. I turned off the light, left the door open a crack. Night settled over the house like an old coat, familiar, worn soft with years. The seedlings trembled on the windowsill beside me, green and breathing. Somewhere a clock ticked. Maybe someone out there was retelling my story, or forgetting it entirely. It didn't matter. I leaned back, exhaled slow, watching the sky fade from gold to gray. The world hushed until only the rhythm of my own breath remained steady even. Then the kettle began to hiss, a small sound filling the quiet house. I rose to pour another cup.